Debbie, my co-host, and myself, and we have a special guest today, Rima Diaz. And if you don't know, well, first of all, happy Monday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. This week, August 31st, is Grief Awareness Day, and we are super excited to have this conversation. It's something that we don't talk about enough. No one wants to talk about it before the event. And then afterward, it is a struggle, right? Dealing with either whether you know a diagnosis in advance that someone's going to soon pass, or it's something that's all of a sudden. But at the end of the day, we all have a limited time here on Earth. And so we're here to chat about it, break all the stigmas, have an open conversation. If you have not met me, I am MaryKim across all things. And I just want to share a little bit about me, and then I'll pass it to Debbie and Rima as our special guest. I understood at the age of 12 the best that I could at that age about grief when I woke up at the age of 12 and to babysit the neighbors' kids, and found out by the end of the day I lost my mother and my dad by the hands of my dad. My dad took my mother's life. And what I learned about that in the weeks that followed with the adults around me is that life goes on. We didn't talk about it. No one said anything. I think someone said, because it was big news where I was. And one of the things the adults said to me around there was two things. One person said, well, don't worry. She was out with one blow. And then a teacher, when we went back to school, said, did you see the front page? Did you see your family on the front page? And it just gave me this thing about adults that, I just moved on, but life went on. That was my lesson. So Debbie, I'm going to pass it to you. Introduce yourself, and then we'll have Rima take the stage.
Sure. Well, my name is Debbie Dowling Waba, or Debbie D Waba across all platforms. And what I do is I help women to learn how to cope, manage, and redirect their anxiety and stress so that they can get back to doing the things they love. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be that person I wish I had, because I've been going and dealing with and managing my anxiety for the majority of my adult life. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it on to Rima. So could you please introduce yourself? And we're so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Rima Diaz. I am a certified healing coach as well as a marketing consultant. What I do is I help people navigate the waters of trauma, of grief, of any type of healing that they need. And in the event that they do want to market or share their story on social media, I assist them in how to start that, how to navigate the waters of social media. I've been in the marketing world since 2018. So, understanding the changes within social media, that's kind of the things that I do for people.
Yeah. Mary Kim, we can't hear you.
Yeah. I do that often. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rima. So glad that you're here with us, like Debbie shared. So I just want to open it up. Grief sometimes people take it, it's only when you lose a loved one. However,
Hmm.
grief can also mean a diagnosis, a loss in a dream, right? Something didn't happen with the dream that you've been going after, a loss in a job. Um, Maybe a relationship ended, right? Grief can be so many things. It's not about losing a pet or a loved one. There's layers to it.
Correct.
I like to share one thing that I learned is when grief happens, there's no timeline, right? There's no like, well, in 30 days you're gonna get over it. It truly is an ever evolving journey. My mom's been gone for 38 years, and some days it feels like yesterday. And that is okay because it's a continued process. And so, what I've learned through my life is that I have to own my feelings and allow it to be, right? Because I've learned from my own experience that if not, it doesn't serve me mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so that's one thing I want to share, that it is okay and it is a journey. So I love to you ladies to share your experience or what you've learned about grief or what you're still learning about grief.
Yeah, so the one thing that when I started my grieving journey, as I was telling you earlier, Mary Kim, so back in 2017, in July, I lost my grandmother. In September, I lost my dad. And in December, I lost my stepdad. So, not not even getting over my grandmother or even starting that process, I was hit with another blow. and then still trying to figure out, like, okay, so this happened and this happened, and now I'm getting hit with another blow right before Christmas. And already the holidays was already not the best. I wasn't in the best mood or anything like that. And I remember when I started therapy, my therapist told me, like, you have to understand, you have to understand how to navigate the emotional landscape of grief. And I'll never forget that, because it made me realize, like, you know, these people were pivotal people in my life, and now I have to understand the emotional layers and navigate that for each one individually. And sometimes it may happen together, sometimes I may grieve one more than the other, but no matter how I go through that process, it's okay. And to know that as long as I hold their memory alive within myself, then I'll always have a part of them with me, so it'll make the process easier. And I remember this weekend on Clubhouse, I someone shared their story, and I told them, you have to give yourself grace. And I know in the beginning of my journey I never did that. And also too, because people is like, oh, it's okay, eventually you'll get over it. But I can remember when my grandfather passed away 17 years ago. It's like, I remember that. I remember where I was, how I was actually pregnant, So it's like, you never get over it, but you learn how to deal with it. And I remember telling her, you have to give yourself grace, and then you have to grieve in pieces. You can't just take the whole trauma and expect for it to just be done and over with. No, you have to take apart the pieces and actually go through the journey. And eventually, once you get to the acceptance stage of grief, you'll learn to live with their memory within yourself, and their loss wouldn't seem like it's a loss. It would just seem like you're doing life with them through a whole nother way. And so now that I'm in that phase, it's very easier to talk about grief because I've actually navigated all the waters of it. So, yeah.
And Rima, so I have a kind of a similar story. I was pregnant with my son, 6 months pregnant, and my dad passed away.
Oh,
And
wow.
he passed away on May 27th. Then June 27th, my uncle passed away.
Oh,
And
wow.
then July 27th, one of like our childhood friend passed
Mhm.
away. So I had three in a row, all on the 27th. And my son was born in August that month. And I mean, that year. And I always say that he was the light at the end of that really dark tunnel that year. So it was a hard year. And, the grief. And I think because of having my son, I didn't truly grieve like my dad the way I probably would have had I not had, my son that year. And 5 years ago, I lost my mother, and it was a completely different experience as far as grief wise. And I think it's a hard conversation to have. And one thing I always tell people, because they'll say, oh, you should be over it. No, you're never. It's not for you to tell me, first of all, and you may never get over it. And everybody grieves differently. And the
Yes.
last thing I want to say is, on the gravestone of where my grandparents are and my parents, I didn't want it to say like rest in peace, or the some of the normal things. So it says that which lies within our hearts remains unchanged forever.
Mhm.
And I truly believe it does, because when you have those memories, and they're not ever going to leave you, so you have to hold on to them. And so when I go there and everything, and I'm feeling a little sad, I
Right.
read that, and it just reminds me the
Yeah.
memories are always there, and they're always going to be in my heart.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what a lot of people don't realize is grief is like healing. You're never ever gonna get to the point of healing where you say, "Okay, I'm healed. I can take on the world." No, it's a never ending journey, because it's like an onion. Once you peel off one layer, there's another layer there, and a lot of us oftentimes we don't understand that our grieving journey and our healing journey go hand in hand, especially if there were trauma involved in the loss that you've encountered. And like Mary Kim say, like, grief and losing someone can mean a plethora of things. It could be a
Mhm.
relationship. Like, I remember back in 2019, I was grieving through my divorce. So it's like, and then grieving someone that's alive, like I grieve my mom. My mom is my only parent that I have, and we don't have a relationship at all. So, I've came to the understanding, even in that situation, that there's I realized that through my healing journey, there is a lot of unresolved trauma that our parents encounter. And because our parents aren't weren't raised how they tried to raise us, and how now that we're mothers, we're trying to raise our children, there is like this fine line between how vulnerable our parents can be. And me, I was born and raised in the Caribbean, so that's a whole nother whirlwind of how I was raised compared to how someone in America was raised. And so, being vulnerable and things like that was never a thing. So, understanding that, I can love her from a distance. And whenever she's ready, that olive branch will always be there. But a lot of people don't even understand the magnitude of that. It's like, it's definitely an onion. Once you pull off one layer, here comes another load of it. And especially with grief and social media in this day and age, what
Mhm.
people had to encounter, like when we just went through the pandemic, and every single day you log into social media, someone else passed away, and it's just been like I feel like the last couple years have just been like this whole black cloud of death for a lot of us, especially during the pandemic. So I just, once I got very comfortable, I wanted to create that space for people on Clubhouse to feel safe, and I realized being on Clubhouse lately, there's not a lot of safe spaces for people to be vulnerable and share their stories. And I just actually have people there that's like, wow, like I remember when I went through that, and just empathize with them. And this weekend showed me that, in the midst of the darkness of the world, there's still that light. There's still an abundance of people with light that can create that for people. And it was a beautiful thing this weekend. So, yeah.
And that's, like what me and Mary Kim are trying to create in all spaces that we are, is that safe space. So I love that you're doing that for people and allowing them to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I do too, Rima. Thank you for sharing that. It's so important. I I'm happy that we met today. But you don't know that I've been running these type of spaces too on Clubhouse for the last
Right.
3 years. A
Oh, wow.
resiliency and recovery room, two different clubs, about 3 hours each week for each one. And what I've learned is exactly what you shared, Rima, talking to thousands of people for the last 3 years. It doesn't matter where you grew up. It's our age range, right? Us
Yes.
adults talking about it, right? And that could be anywhere from
Yes.
30 to 50 and higher.
Yeah.
We all grew up in that same mindset, in that same
Mhm.
way that our parents or our grandparents raised us. And I'm
Yeah.
so proud of us who are speaking out to break the stigmas, because a lot of the things that we were told you shouldn't do, it's not right. We know it
Right.
was as adults, right, through our own journey, that they were just doing the best that they
They
can.
can.
However, we know that that didn't serve us the best, right? And I love that you touched on creating a safe space is so important, because even though it's 2023, social media, you can find everything on Google, everything on social media, and sometimes we think, oh, because in our space we talk about mental health, right? And mental igma mental stigmas and anything
Mhm.
that's like taboo, right?
Right.
But there are still a lot of communities that don't allow it, still a lot of homes that are still
Yeah.
functioning in the same way. And if it's just that 1 second that hears us and like, oh, okay, I'm not alone, right?
Right.
But I love that you also, Rima, touched on grieving someone who is still alive, right?
Yes.
Losing that relationship. When I
Mhm.
was pregnant with my son, I found out that he was going to be a child with Down syndrome. I grieved. I had 6 weeks to decide what I was going to do. And I mourned him. And some people like, you
Yeah.
really mourned him? You know, I'm like, yes, I love this child. I was full blown pregnant, but I mourned him, like ugly grieved him, crying, because in order for me to go along and like have this baby, I had to break down my vision of what I
Right.
expected my child to be, but
Right.
also break down the misconceptions, the misinformation I learned through my own train of thought, not because I Googled it, because there was no Google back in the day growing up,
Right.
right? But I had these thoughts about what special needs kids are, especially a child with Down syndrome, because that is the one thing I said I will never have, right? And
Right.
of course, I believe in God, and sometimes He's like, "All right, MaryKim, well, here you go. Here's your kid that you said you're never gonna have." But that was a grieving process. So grieving can be any loss. So I love that you touched upon that, because it's so important, um, that we share this, because sometimes, like we said in the beginning, it's not just a loss of a human being or an animal.
Right. And it can also be places, sometimes I get sad that I live, in the West Coast and there's no beach right here. Like my nearest beach is 5 hours away. It's like,
Wow.
like growing up and being able to go to the beach like at a blink of an eye, and now it's like, do I want to take that drive? That's something that I definitely miss. And let's not talk about the food as well. So it's a never ending. You could literally go through a grieving journey of literally anything that meant and mattered to you. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that once you love something with all of you and it's taken away from you, whether it was willingly or unwillingly, you can grieve that. And I realized, especially through being on Clubhouse this weekend, because I've been in Clubhouse since 2020, and then I took a break last year because I had to go through some motions and prepare myself for coming back. And I'm an empath, so I pull in a lot of energies, especially in healing. And I had to mentally prepare myself. And going through what I was going through at the time, I didn't want or wanted to give that space to anyone else. I wanted to make sure that I was whole before I come back on social media. And so being back these past couple weeks, it's just it has been a very interesting process just to see and how to navigate. And even when you create safe spaces, to see how unhealed people or people that are unwilling to start their journey or go through their process, how they would come on the platform and just attack people that are being super vulnerable. And it is like that duality between the two, that is like, as humans, we have to go through we have to grow through what we're going through, and still have to make space for the criticism of someone else that don't like what we're doing the way we're doing it. And I remember telling a guy that was the one being attacked, I said, something that I realized during my journey, it's my journey, first of all. And no one can tell me how to do my journey. And as long as I am being authentic to myself, I said, you have nothing to worry about. I said, because the person you were yesterday is not who you are today. It is not who you're going to be tomorrow. So if someone is trying to pull you back into who you were, you have to check them and create that boundary and say, hey, you may have known me yesterday, but today I'm a whole new person. Like, you can't allow people to keep you bonded to a trauma or a part of your story that you're grieving and healing through. Like, growth is inevitable. Some people don't want to grow. Some people want to stay tethered to that mindset of, I can attack people, I can say what I want, it's my First Amendment right. Well, your First Amendment right also come with consequences. And what is your intention behind exercising your First Amendment right? Is was it to heal someone? Was it to help someone? Or was it to make someone feel as nasty as you feel inside? And I was telling them in the room, like we have to move forward with intention. And just because it is our right and we have a thought and we should say does not mean that we should say it. And oftentimes you have to read the space that you're in. And, the guy that attacked the one gentleman tried to attack me. And I had to tell him, I said, I am so whole. You could throw a bulldozer at me and it's not going to do me anything. I said, because you're projecting what you refuse to deal with
Yeah.
onto me, sir. That's the biggest boundary I have. Like, you cannot throw to me what you don't want to deal with. And, and making sure you have boundaries. That was another thing I shared with them this weekend is, once you're going through your grieving journey, even your healing journey, make sure you create healthy boundaries around who you are and who you're trying to become through the process, and don't ever let anyone bulldozer your boundaries, because without your boundaries you'll never get to the next level, because you'll always stay stagnant, because in essence you'll always feel like, okay, well, maybe they're right, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and that is not okay for you to think about yourself.
I love that, Rima. I always say I have this acronym, I think it's called, with women, right? Why owning my truth empowers naturally. Because once you know who you are, right, and you know your journey, and I say something, no one can tell you anything different, right? Because you already know, right? I know who I am, good, bad, and different. I'm working on these things, and that's okay. I'm a human being. I'm giving myself grace. But also, what you shared, Rima, is I lost my train of thought. I will come back and remember. This is really-
Yeah, and like, and the one thing I wanted to go back to too is that Rima, you brought up was grieving doesn't necessarily, most people associate grieving and death, and it's not just death that people grieve. It
Right.
is maybe the where they, not living in the where they grew up, and maybe it is a relationship, a person that's, around still. Maybe it's a ton of things. Maybe they couldn't find their Oreo cookies in like 6 months or whatever. But but I love that you said that, because it is so true. People automatically think when you're talking about grieving, you're talking about death, and grieving can have so many other places where it takes place, and you don't even realize that that's what it is. So it's important that we get these conversations out there and make people understand that you can be sad that you don't have a relationship with somebody anymore, and you can be sad that they're not part of your life, or you can be sad that you're not living where you grew up at, or where you're, the neighborhood and stuff. So it's important that we understand that it's okay, and it is a grieving process, and it's your journey individually, and nobody should be able to tell you how to go through your journey.
Right.
I remember now. So I love that you shared all of those things, ladies. You ladies are amazing. Is I love when you mentioned, Rima. I'm hearing this thing on these social streets, right? Especially around grief, and it burns me up because I'm like, that's so wrong.
Yeah.
Where there are people who are mentors or coaches or whatever title that they do their work on and about
Mhm.
is, well, just get over it. Oh,
Right.
that happened. Move on. It is so dangerous.
It
This is
is.
my words, because you're not dealing with it. You're not owning it, right? Because
Yes.
it will take your health with you, right? There's that book, like, your body has a memory. I forget what it's called, but your body has a memory, right? It'll eat
Mhm.
you up alive for real. You'll get these different health things. You're like, what? Because your body needs to process it, right? It's a
Yes.
spirit, right? Your
Mhm.
body's a spirit, no matter what you believe in, and it remembers these things. This is why people have gone through trauma and they're in a similar situation, but they've gone through the process, and something can trigger it, and your body thinks it's happening right then, and it's an
Right then.
automatic
Mhm.
reaction. But this is us being humans, right? And it's okay. It doesn't matter what you're grieving. You could be like, oh my gosh, I had these 2 Christmases, right, that
Mhm.
I've been able to manage, losing X, Y, and Z, or not
Right.
having in this relationship anymore, or whatever the case may be, but I'm enjoying it. And then the next Christmas, it's not so pleasant. You have these thoughts that bring you back to that space because you're missing something. And you know what? Missing something is not a terrible thing, right? It's a beautiful gift to miss somebody, right? To miss something that brought you joy. It doesn't mean, that you shouldn't, if it something would ever ended bad, right? Let's say we're talking about a relationship, right? It's okay to remember the good things, right? Because those good things gave you joy and stuff. And it's okay to grieve the bad stuff, right? And let it go. But hold on to those memories and those moments and seconds of the joys in your life. I don't believe in like putting those things aside because you're no longer with this person, right?
Right.
These are things that made us who we are. That's what I believe. So I love that you share that. It's dangerous when I hear people say, like, just get over it, just put it
Mhm.
down, don't worry about it, it happened. It's
Mhm.
not healthy at all. It's not healthy. There's the cat.
There's the
That
cat.
always makes no sense. We love the cat, so
That's my assistant. He makes an appearance every single time I'm live.
He just wants us all to know that he is working.
But yes, he's working hard.
Yeah, and I love that you touch on that, Mary Kim, because what people don't realize is, oftentimes based on our trauma, based on our upbringing, and then to get hit with a loss, no matter what that loss is. And then you go and you hear people say, oh, it'll be okay. You'll be fine. You'll be this. What people don't realize is also during somebody's process, they also create other mental health issues.
Hmm.
And, I remember for a very long time, I was suicidal because it's like you took three, and I was angry at God. People don't talk about that you can be angry about God or whomever you believe in. Oh, him and I was going at it all the time because how dare you take these people away from me that I love? It's like, if you're supposed to protect me, you're supposed to be here for me, you said you're going to answer all my prayers. I never prayed for that. So why would you do that to me? So I was suicidal for a while, and I remember my therapist, she told me, she was like, you have to protect your mental health over everybody and everyone.
Hmm.
Like, you have to, it as at all costs. And she was like, maybe some people that you're around, you shouldn't be around. Maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't do that. And in the beginning, I was like, you can't tell me what to do, because it's like, now you're telling me to lose more people. Like, what is wrong with you? But what I realized I understood during that journey was, not only was I suicidal, but I was becoming an alcoholic, you know? And instead of dealing with it, I was using a substance to just numb me to it. And when I realized what that was, and when I realized that the people around me, for one, wasn't my support circle, they weren't my safe space, and they would allow me to be in that dark space and not try to help me get out of it, I understood what she was talking about. It's like, you have kids. First of all, death is not the option. Death is never the right option. And I tell people that today. I was like, death is never going to be the option. It's, so take it off your table, because we're not going there. It's not even the last option, it's a no option. And because that's something I had to tell myself. And when people say things like that, like, oh, you'll be fine, like, you don't know the mental stability of that person that you're talking to. And maybe they're talking because that's their only way, or the only way they know how to ask for help. And you telling them, oh, you'll be fine may be the last thing that send them over the edge. That's why I tell a lot of people, when, especially with grief, it is a very fragile area, because you really don't know the mental of some of the person that you're speaking to. So if you're going to open spaces for it, you have to make it safe. You have to make it non-judgmental. You have to come with an open mind, because everyone grieve differently. Everyone's journey is different. Some people could be grieving and they're still trying to figure out who they are. they don't even love themselves, but they're going through a dual process. So it's like with those people you have to be a little bit more gentle because they're still trying to figure out who they are. I mean, with the way of the world right now, it's like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Like everything is going up in flames, like, and then, they get hit with a sudden death, and it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be here because what? It's like it's a very slippery slope, and a lot of people don't understand how dangerous those words or phrases are, like you say, Mary Kim. And quite frankly, I think that, there's some people that really have a heart for healing, is what I call it. They have that true heart for healing because they can hear someone's cries without them even crying. And then there's others that don't have that heart, but they see that it is a market, and they see that they can provide a service for people. And I feel like those are the people that are creating, the mental health industry as a dangerous slippery slope, because it's like, for anyone in the mental health profession, like, and even people that talk about it, advocate for it, they have that heart for healing, they have that heart for change, they have that natural heart of love and light and peace and grace, you know and not a lot of people
Sorry.
embody those things, so when you have people that don't embody those things, they're more open to say things like, you'll get over it, it's been 10 years. Like I said, I was 6 months pregnant when my grandfather passed away, and I had her, he passed away in December. I had her in January at 6 months, almost 7 months, and every day that I see her, I experience a part of him, and even with my grandmother, my dad, and my stepdad, I talk to my sister. Um, that's for my stepdad. I talk to her as often as I can, just because, like, that bond that we had when we was growing up, and just understanding that, she also lost her grandmother, and now she lost her dad, and knowing and understanding the relationship we have with our mother, it's like, I, as the oldest, have to be there for her more, because in essence she literally has no one. She has no one, so. And then my other sister, she still has her mom, she has her full family circle. So, I check in every now and again to see how her and the kids are doing. But, making sure that I create that safe space for, not just for my immediate circle, but also everyone that I come in contact with. And I always encourage people, if your circle, and by you, talking about it, and doing, journaling through it, and growing through it, if you are still in that slump, get professional help. And I think that stigma behind people being in therapy and counseling, we have to do away with that. Like, we cannot be going through life without having a therapist at some point in our life, because life is hard. And sometimes your circle is going through it too. So
Right.
if you're the one to step out and be like, let me get a therapist so I can help my little collective of people, it's always good to seek professional help. And don't feel bad about it. Don't be ashamed about it. Like, be proud about it, because that deep down inside you can't do this alone, and you're seeking a professional that can help you navigate the waters.
Right. And coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists. I mean, it doesn't matter what profession you're in, you always need somebody to help you and work with you and to assist you just to get through things. I mean, maybe
Right,
that, somebody's been through something you haven't, and they can't tell you how to do it, but they can show you how they did it. And then it's your choice whether you take their advice or not. But
right.
everybody needs somebody. We weren't meant to do life alone.
We weren't.
So it's great when you can have a community or even just one person, but again, you do never know who in your circle is going through the same thing, and who you're or who you give sharing your story with will help.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, that's
I
so
love
true.
that. I love that, ladies. I think it's so important, that safe space, right? And not judging or making criticism about when someone says they're feeling X, Y, and Z, whether it's through grief, through a conversation. If someone shares with
Right.
you, oh, you made me feel X, Y, and Z, you can't say, well, I didn't do that. You did, right? But
Right.
that's their feelings, right? If you're
Mhm.
creating a safe space, communication, you have to honor someone's feelings. Even if you had that happen to you, you wouldn't be acting or feeling a certain way. That's okay, right? But I also love that, um how you shared about, oh, here goes the train of thought. I got Sesame Street in the background, and okay, I'm gonna yield the mic for a second.
No worries. But yeah, also in creating the safe space, one thing that I learned with my circle that I started doing is, growing up, I never really heard I love you and things like that. And during my grieving journey, while I was with my therapist, the one thing she told me is you have to learn to love yourself before you can give that love to somebody else.
mhm.
And during that process, I had to go back and ask myself, like, what do I love? I had to heal my inner child and go through the process in nurturing the child within. And going through that process, the one thing I started doing at random is telling the people within my circle that I love them. Because the one thing that I did realize is me verbalizing it to someone else is in turn healing another layer of, my the child that lies within me that I'm still nurturing. And I know it's a stigma with people just telling their friends, "Oh, I love you," and things like that. And I tell a lot of people, when you're on a journey in growing and doing life with people and building your village and building your community, it is okay to be vulnerable with them. If you can't be vulnerable within your community, then you're doing life with the wrong community. If you can't be held accountable within your community, then you're doing life with the wrong
Community.
community. And I told them, if you can't vent to your community in a non-judgmental space and they not provide that for you, you're also doing life with the wrong community. Like when I check in with my friends, if they're going through things, I let them vent. Okay. I'd be like, all right, honey, get it out right now. We're going to get it out today, or we're going to get it out in the next 5 minutes. And tomorrow is a different day. We're not going back to that. Right. But I give them that space because, you know, I've had many friendships where I didn't have that. Or I was judged for feeling some type of way, or I was judged for saying something, or being judged because somebody misunderstood or took something that I did in the wrong context. And instead of communicating with me, they just did the complete opposite. So now that is something that I do, not only for myself in nurturing my inner child, but I also understand that a lot of us grew up without hearing "I love you," and I just say, if I'm going through this journey with these women and some guys, because I do have two male best friends, I was like, if I'm going through this journey with this community of people and I'm healing a part of me along the way, I'm going to try and heal as much as them as I can too. And I think it's very important that when we do create safe spaces, that is something that's brought up. I know in my clubhouse room, it's funny because when we started Clubhouse, it was conversations that can change your life. Though that was the room that we used to do. And I remember the first time I told a bunch of strangers, I love every last one of y'all. And I hope that you all have the best day. And it was so crazy because when I got off that day, I was like, did you just tell 32 people you love them? But then I realized that the more that I did it, there was this one gentleman that to this day we still talk. He's like my little brother. And he was like, you have no idea what that did for me.
Hmm.
You have no idea what you just saying that did for me. And I realized that I don't do it often. I don't do it all the time.
Right.
But if I'm led in a room to just share that or say it out loud, I always do, because I know someone in there needs it, and spirit is telling me they need it. They need this right now. And I need you to say it right now, you know? So I always make sure that during any journey that I know that anyone is on, as long as they're, within my circle, I always make sure, I tell them how proud I am of them, how much I love them, and just reassure them that they're not going through this journey by themselves.
Right.
'Cause I
I
know,
love that, Reba.
yeah, because I know, like, when we go through our journey, we feel that, like, we're going through it by ourselves.
Absolutely. And everyone wants to be seen and heard, right? Every single one of us, right? From like your newborn to your 90 and 100-year-old grandmother or grandfather, right? Every single
Yeah,
person wants to be heard and seen for who they are. And it's so
right.
much. I love that you touched on community. Community in these social streets, community in real life, community
Yeah,
in your home. Like, it's so important to be around a community that wants more for you than from you. End of
right.
story. And then accepts you for who you are, right? Not to say no one's perfect, right? But then I'm who
Right.
I am, right? And so if you're not accepting me for who I am, even if you don't agree with what I'm doing, as long as I'm not, out there hurting people intentionally. I'm not taking away people's like rights or whatever intentionally. Like,
Right.
that's different. If you're leading with love to give back from your heart, like, you are doing good, right? And not everyone is going to understand it. Not everyone's going to agree with it. Like, why do you even do that? Why do you say everyone's going to let, like,
Right.
it's who I am. And I'm
Right.
okay with it, right? And sometimes we do these things, and even us talking about this, people are like, why are you sharing your business? Like, don't say that, like, it's associated with
Right.
me and my friends don't know this, like, but it's my journey, and I'm not harming anyone. I'm actually trying to give back because I know what it felt like to feel alone. I know what it felt like to, like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one experiencing this, right? And so the one thing that I wanted to touch on is when you shared, Rima, that, or I want to just clarify. So when I say that, don't just like, well, put it to the side, right? Just forget about it. Sometimes I have to tell myself, because I'm going into a meeting right now, and I have
Mhm.
to collect myself because I'm not
Right.
canceling this meeting. I got to put my game face on. So
Oh,
for
yeah.
me, like, that's like, okay, I'm putting it to the side. I'm going to cry my
Mhm.
eyes out after this meeting because I got to do this
Right.
presentation, right? But in general, when someone says put it to the side, just get over with, now I'm just going to smile, that's just masking what's really
Yeah.
going on, and it continues to build. So I want to just clarify the difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do have to put it to the side. We
Right.
got to do what we need to do. The kids crying, whatever, you got to,
Right.
go on a trip. Fine. Take that time in that moment. If you can't do it in that second, take the time and process that feeling that you're
Right.
going after. And that's okay. We're human beings.
Right. Yeah, I love that you say, like, take the time to do that, because that's also part of self-awareness. That's also part of practicing self-love through the journey as well, It's like, yeah, like, I got to go to a meeting right now. Like, these tears, let me fix my mascara, let me fix my eyeliner. I'm gonna go in here, but when I get back in this car, we may cry on the way home. That's so, yeah, it's very
Yes.
much okay. That is very much okay. And I told a friend of mine's, she lost someone that's very close to her, and I said, you need to take 30 minutes every Wednesday for yourself.
Yes.
I am being that friend to demand that, and I'm going to hold you accountable for it. I said, sometimes, life.
Life
And,
be lifing, we say all
yeah,
the time.
life be life thing sometimes. And I
Yeah.
said, yes, you're a mom. Yes, you're a wife. Yes, you're a businesswoman. Yes to all of that. I am proud of you. Hoorah. However, what's gonna happen if you drop down one day? Because you never took at least 30 minutes for yourself. And I said, yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable because your mind is going to tell you, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. But slow your mind, calm your mind, and be present with your emotions, with what you're feeling. And just know that the kids are going to be fine.
Right.
Okay? The kids are going to be fine. What the kids are not going to be fine about is when you're not here and
Absolutely.
you're gone too soon, because you were just going, 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 and you didn't take time to stop. So yeah, I do love that you clarified that, because yeah, self-care and self-love and self-awareness through the journey is very important. Like we may not be able to take time every single day in the beginning of the process because life be life in. But if you start and you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to take 20 minutes on this day, or I'm going to do an hour on this day, and if you have to calendar it, just so you can go and do it, whether you go get your nails done or you just sit in the pedicure chair and, you know, let the pedicurist massage your feet, like whatever that may look like for you, it is very important for you to take care of yourself through the journey.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, like you were saying earlier, like we can incur a lot of diseases within ourselves. Like we are spirits at the end of the day. So we want to make sure that we're not just leaving ourselves hanging and taking care of everyone and not ourselves.
I love that. And like sometimes for me, I've actually done it. Like I've gone in my car and screamed, drove
Mhm.
someplace to a parking lot and screamed. Like I just needed to get it out. Like that's self-care too, right? Because
Yes.
that frustration or whatever you're going through. I have to stop talking with my hands so much. It can eat you up as well, and that's okay, right? It's
Yeah.
okay to go drive to McDonald's, grab a cup of coffee, strap your kid in the back seat, and let him watch their videos because you can't get any space sitting at home because he loves you so much, he wants to sit on you 24/7. It's okay to go do that and sit in the parking lot for an hour. It's
Right.
okay. We got to take care of ourselves. I love this conversation. I love to hear, like, Rima, if you want to share, like, one or two tips about, I know we shared so much in this conversation. Like, what is your two things that you lean into going through a grieving process or self-care? Maybe one grieving process and one self-care. Yes, hi, Beth.
So they go both hand in hand. So the number one thing that I always encourage people to do is write. Sometimes we don't know what to say, or we don't know necessarily how we feel. So always have a journal with you and write it out. Um, it's a good way for you to navigate where you are. It's a good way for you to appreciate and give gratitude to where you are within the journey. And it's also one of the best ways to get it all out, because as you're writing, you're never gonna stop until that full process of emotion is out. So I always encourage people to write it out, and don't be afraid to cry. I know a lot of people are, they think crying is means you're weak. I feel like crying is a sign of strength, um, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're sad. You could think of a memory of someone that you lost, and it was the most beautiful memory you can remember in that moment, and you just cry because it's like, that I needed that. And crying is healing. So I always encourage people, like, don't be afraid to cry, and get it out. Don't leave it within. Write it out. Find that pen and paper and write it out. And I'll share one last thing. Give yourself the grace that you so freely give to others. um, it's a journey, it's a process, and we give an abundance of grace to everyone else, and sometimes we forget to give it to ourselves. So give yourself the grace that you so freely give to others.
Well, thank you for that. And yes, giving yourself grace is probably one of the most important things that
Yeah.
we can all do, because when we give ourselves grace, it does allow us to grow. It does allow us to take care of ourselves and learn how to love ourselves and, forgive ourselves. So I absolutely love that. Mary Kim?
Yes, you ladies are amazing. I agree to what both of you ladies shared. I don't even know what to add except I want to just say, you know, be grateful for the journey, right? And I think Rima, you touched on this. I always say what's helped me, honor the people that you've lost, right? Or the situations that there was a grieving process, right? Take those seconds and moments that gave you life, that gave you joy, that warmed your heart, and own them, right? If you lost a loved one, what's helped me is, honor what they loved about you the most, right? Or what you loved about them, and embody it, right? So I remember my mom like always being the leader, and we got ready for the holidays and everyone came to the house, and I love that. That's just like a great memory of mine, right? And it's a
Right.
sad memory too when we don't have that now, but I love that. I loved how it made me feel. And so I do that. Like, live
Right.
in those things and honor your loved ones of what the joys that they loved about you, or what you loved about what they gave to you, or to this world, right? And I believe also, Rima, you touched on it, that you've talked to loved ones. I talk to my loved ones all the time. They are
Yes.
spirits as well, and they hear you, right? And you may get a sign. I believe signs from heaven. I get them all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I believe in them. Like, I have stories galore about that. But
Hmm.
just give yourself great. I agree with both of these ladies what you shared. And before we close out, ladies, share with the audience, how can people stay in touch with you, um, and where can they find you on social media?
I am everywhere on social media. Does not mean that I am active everywhere on social media. I am mostly on Instagram and Facebook at She Is Destined. My website is sheisdestined.com. I do have tools. I have some workbooks on there that you can download that can assist you with your grieving journey. I'm also on Clubhouse at She Is Destined, which, for the next couple days I'll be holding that safe space about grief. It would be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone can come in. It's open to everyone, and every day there is a guide that I provide for free. So that's, if you are needing, or that's the stage that you're in with your journey, you could download the guide, and it has prompts and things like that that can help you get through that process.
Well, thank you. And for me, it's Debbie D. Waba across all platforms except Facebook. It's Debbie Dowling Waba.
Uh, Thank you, ladies. I'm MaryKim Farkas across all social platforms. And definitely, if you're listening to this now, when you watch the replay, tap into Clubhouse. Clubhouse is an audio app. You could show up. No doll. You don't need to be dolled up or anything. You show up
Right.
with your audio, with your avatar, your photo, and jump into the space. Get connected. If you're going through anything, or you want to invite someone else to Remote Space, do so. Clubhouse is free, an audio app. There's no excuse, and just tap in. You don't have to go on stage and share, but just get yourself, if you're looking to share your story, or just be around people that you know that you're not the only one. It is a great space, a great place to start. And the last thing I want to share is, as we always say, if you like these conversations, definitely share it, but also reach out to myself or Debbie. We love having guests on every week and talk about what you want to talk about around mindset and mental health and breaking stigmas. And join us next week. I know it's September 4th, it's Labor Day in the United States, but we're still going to be here live, and I'm so excited. You get to meet Bailey Carlson about how do we best celebrate joy, passion, balance work and life, especially, many schools have opened up already, but New York area, we have not yet. We open up after Labor Day. You know what? Let's get grounded. Let's kick off the fall with a great mindset, right? So thank you, ladies. It's been an
Thank
amazing
you.
conversation.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Bye,
Thank you, and
everyone.
have a great day.
Have a good one.